Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel. This one is going to be a little bit more interesting because I'm telling you about, this is a multidimensional problem. I'm talking to you about narcissism. And we're joining the dots, right? In a number of ways. And I want to talk about being targeted by narcissists. You know, sometimes you might just meet one and you realise what is happening and you leave it out of your life. Some of us have been literally targeted over and over and over again. And yes, like I've been talking about law of attraction. My dogs always go crazy. I'm going to show you the dog soon. I hope no one gets annoyed by the doggy interruptions. I've talked to you about law of attraction and why things are an energetic match in the universe. How do we manifest? How do we attract, if we want to use quantum physics, which I'll get into in a different video, to create the lives we want. But when you have trauma, your manifestation gets blocked. Not because it doesn't work, because there's too much trauma in your field that you're vibrating at the level of, right? So it's hard to raise your vibration to be a compatible match to what you're trying to bring in. That's why you might, if you did understand this and it stopped working for you, or you felt that way, it's normally trauma in the way. But beyond that, you know, people have been talking about self-love, low self-esteem, childhood wounds, all that stuff, right? But there's a lot of people on the planet who have low self-esteem, childhood wounds, past traumas, and they don't get targeted by narcissists. In fact, some of them, many of them, which is why this is not understood by everyone, this phenomenon, but it's a real thing and it's been getting chronic. You know, some of them go into caring situations, you know, happy homes. They learn how to form healthy relationships. They don't get in a spiritual warfare. So why do we? Why did you? Because as empaths, as light workers, we have a purpose on the planet. That does not mean you have to be famous and do something that you would think of as big, but it does mean that your very essence, if it's allowed to be, because it can't, you know, the reason we are so nice to the narcissist, partly is what I'm teaching you. We don't have the tools, and we don't necessarily see it for what it is. We don't understand it fully. We've been taught that it's some kind of just a psychological disorder. It's way beyond that. 2, we are capable of so much love. We will give and give and give. And there's nothing actually wrong with that with the right people, because, you know, with the right people, it's like we can't give enough to each other. You know, we don't have to do it at our own depletion. In fact, being generous, being kind is one of the things that gives us the most pleasure, our contribution. They know who has the possibility to literally create proper change on the world. Can you imagine? I believe empathy will change our planet. It will change the way we do everything. If the more empathy is allowed, changes, you know, the more empathy means we can't fight each other in the same way anymore. We come together as a collective. Spiritually, we're going into a time of unity consciousness, which is like, it's a collective consciousness. It's where we stop being brainwashed into competing and fighting and tearing each other down, and we actually create structures and systems that are good for me, good for you, and good for the whole. We do work on the planet that's good for you and good for others, not a sacrifice, not a compromise the whole time. Right? So if you come into your full purpose, which again, it doesn't have to be something that you'd consider big or fancy or changing the world in the way you might think. You know, as an empath, you can go into a room and change the whole mood. Just, you know, whether you're going through at home with a narcissist, you can still go into the store and just smile and people feel good. We have special qualities. That is what the narcissist doesn't want you to know. Why? Because, like I say, this planet is built on an ecosystem. and the dominant energy kind of wind. Now, our energy's more powerful. Love is a very much more powerful force, right? But we have to understand how to fuel that on the planet in a good way, not in a way that is allowing that energy to be siphoned by the entity. When we do that, we're going to build a completely different world. A fair world, you know, a world where we listen to each other, where we actually do other things. So the reason they target, especially light workers, healers, empaths, or people with a high capacity to be the change, is because they can't really coexist very easily, right? So they want to keep that down. They don't really want you to know that that's what the entity knows. That's what that consciousness knows. Our consciousness would elevate, when we're not siphoned and depleted, will elevate the entire consciousness on this planet. That's why it's a spiritual war. Inevitably, we're going into a new paradigm. And what's going to happen, and that's why we're all here, is our consciousness is going to be elevated and they will be forced into an awakening. They will have to awaken, but you can't do it for them. And that is the thing you must know. Please watch that video about the one thing, I can't remember what it's called, but, you know, because I kept thinking my love would change the narcissist, because again, we project our empathy onto them when it's better used for other things, better used for doing beautiful things on the planet, better used for showing your children unconditional love, better used for being a good person in your community and showing people that it's what real connection is, better used to inspire people to be better people, come together in a different collective in new ways that make our hearts sing, better used to enjoy contributing and giving and fuel the good stuff on the planet. If you know your own power in that, they kind of have to, they get forced into awakening. There's not a place for it. It's an ecosystem. So it's a spiritual war. I've always had certain gifts, and like, they know who has, they know who to target. With a narcissist, you're targeted. Again, watch that video on like the one lie that keeps you stuck, because we keep projecting and they are putting you under a spell. It's an illusion. And we project on them what we are. But you're not dealing with someone that's got empathy. And so the challenge with the illusion is we think if we can love it out of them. We can, that illusion that they gave us when they're love bombing, or you can tell, if you really think back, you can tell when there's a projection. I've actually seen like, they shapeshift. I think their faces actually change. Because has any of you had this experience, right, where you've been under a narcissist spell and later you remember and you kind of knew you were not physically attracted to them, but during it you were. They were literally... Empaths absorb energy, right? If you're empathetic, you absorb emotions. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's yours and what's theirs. So again, we are more of an emotional sponge than most people, which is why I've got to teach you the energetic work, because like, we can feel what they're feeling. So we're also much easier to project on, because if we don't know what's ours and what's theirs, if they're very attracted to you and lusting over you, you feel it for them. It's part of the illusion. It's also part of our sensitivity. I'm highly sensitive, so I've had to learn this over years and years and years, and I've taught a lot of empaths how to protect their energy over the years, because I've met people who are very empathetic and they can't have loud noises, and you know, and I wanted to go and play in the world, so I've taught people how to manage this for a long time. But the fact remains, right? Sometimes we're getting confused. We feel the world in technicolor if we're more empathetic, depending on where you are on this, right? And as you continue to open it, you've got to know how to manage your energy, because we are so much more sensitive. And then of course they're full of rage, literally. They're full of hate and spite. And that's why you can't, even by protecting your energy field, like, yes, I did see someone wrote, and he absolutely correct, you can't always just get out of these situations easily. So you have to learn how to deal with them, and you need tools for that. But really, by working on it energetically, you absolutely eradicate the need for this in your life whatsoever. Because again, we don't want to live a life where we have to be in defense mode. We want to live a life of connection, of purpose, right? And they know you can do it. They know there is a force. And also, when you're connected to them, you can't connect to source. You can't connect to your intuition, and you can't connect to the divine. Not in the same way as you, I mean, you can, obviously, you're always connected divinely, but not in the same way. Not in the same way, because they're interfering with your field and you're consenting, whether you know it or not, which is why I keep teaching you psychically no consent. So we're not, as I say, we don't fight in the same way, but our presence changes the world. Our approach changes the world. Our magnetism, when you start healing this and unenmeshing goes up, you know, everything, and the divine can work through you so much better, right? But you've got to get unenmeshed. So I'm going to teach you a lot of this in Sovereign. 6 weeks journey, that opens. I'm going to open the doors March 1st, and I'm going to just do the practicalities and stuff. It's very easy, but you know, it's just the beginning part. Official training start March 6th, and they'll go on to April 17th, and it's course materials and a community. So you can ask me about that. It's on my website, elliefrost.com now.